if journalism were a number or mainstream media were to confront and challenge those in power, were to expose the corruption, the systemic corruption in so many levels of society, what are the risks that they are exposing themselves to?
Well, we don't have any more government censorship. We don't get any more calls from some generals in the military. We used to that in the 90s, 80s. The government used to be the number one enemy of the media. That's not the case anymore. In fact, the government is scared because every time they place a phone call, if the president places a phone call to me or to the editor-in-chief, it would get reported that the president is trying to influence the news. So they stay away. Same thing with the generals and all the government officials. And we have a press law since 1999 that actually guarantees our freedom to operate. It's wonderful. Maybe it's too wonderful that it cannot be applied. When a journalist is under the threat of somebody else, the police, especially from the radical Islamic groups, the police will not come and help you. Although under the law we are protected by, the law protects us, but the police says, well, the radical Islamic groups, forget it. So that's what the problem with Indonesia today. Journalists, although we don't face any problems or harassments or threats from the government or the military, you get threats from radical Islamic groups, sometimes from powerful politicians, powerful businessmen, who don't like what we write. And what they do, they will just send truckloads of people to harass, intimidate, and even there have been cases when newsrooms were vandalized, attacked, vandalized, and even occupied. And it only takes one case, and then for the other, it has this impact of chilling effect. Yeah. Other journalists, other media become scared about reporting particular issues, especially reporting on radical Islamic groups, because they learn that if you do that, and you're going to get attacked. When I was the editor-in-chief of Jakarta Post, I was getting phone calls from people, anonymous calls. Sometimes they were threatening, and they asked, what is my religion? And I said, I'm Muslim. And they said, you cannot be Muslims because you're protecting this other religions. And then they said, just watch your back. Okay. But this has become part of the territory of reporting in Indonesia. Thankfully, nothing happened to me, but those phone calls can be intimidating. But I think I'm holding on to the fact that it's the media's job to report on these issues, and sometimes we have to take the risk.
I think that the media in Malaysia is attempting to push the envelope further and further in order to, what Maria was saying, the writing from the point of authenticity rather than from the point of authority. But sometimes you get groups, certain vested interests, who may not like what you said, what you have written, and then they will say something, issue a statement. I think that's a very interesting case recently when some corporate figure wrote a column in this Malay newspaper, and he was grieving over the death of his son, and then he published a poem written by his son. And I don't know, then suddenly one royal house issued a statement and said, are you referring to the Sultan? Because that poem alluded to this, you know. So these are things which those in power, they seem to be not very comfortable if the media were to actually say certain things which is the truth. But we try our best, especially when Malaysians, when we say about corruption and definitely when we want to report. Sometimes in our society, when that person is of a high standing or a high ranking, and before he enters into court, then you get advice from here and there. Oh, since he hasn't been brought to court, it's not nice to put his name, although we know that that guy stinks, and then he is going to be judged the next day. But they will say, oh, don't write about it yet until he appears in court, and then that will be the right thing to do. So these are things, but it is kind of funny, you know, when Malaysians, they have a voracious appetite. Who is involved in this scandal? Who is involved in that scandal? You know, when it's other people, then it's okay. When it comes to their bosses or their associates, then they place a phone call. Can you not please run the story because my boss is involved in this Kalawat case? Yeah, it's not nice. Now you just say a senior official, no need to go and say that who and who. So, if we want to be transparent, we better be transparent all the way. You know, we must not have triple standards, you know, the kind of thing. not double standards, triple standards. One rule for this person, one rule for that person. So when it comes to people involved in these certain scandals, oh, it's not nice to write about it. You know, you just mentioned it's just a senior official who do not need to identify the ministry or department concerned. So anyway, we are trying our best.
I think two things. Yeah, in Zamboanga, I just wanted to show you an instance. The two things are ignorance, and the last is empowerment, the second, right? So the first one of ignorance is, again, the whole idea of censorship. Censorship or control, both the same things in different ways, right? Power will never want to be challenged, because part of maintaining power is the appearance of all-knowing and all-knowing. That's not the world today, and no one believes that. Again, look at Haiyan. Every government tries to control a death count because a disaster is political. If a government doesn't look like it's capable of taking care of its own people, then there's a political impact to that. But again, in Zamboanga, I'm sorry, there's so many thoughts to go through because these are issues we deal with all the time. In Zamboanga, we had a government that said on national television that the way, remember, if you're not familiar with it, Muslim rebels instigated the siege of Zamboanga City, which is a hub of commerce in the Philippines, and it's a city that has very high prejudice against Muslims. Muslims are 5% of the population in the Philippines of about 100 million people. In that one, the way they were able, the Muslim rebels who did start this started using people as human shields. And the way the government said that they pulled them out, decided who were hostages and who were not, was just by saying who could say the Our Father. And they said this on national television, as if you're a Muslim, you don't know the Our Father. I know Muslim prayers. I guess it starts with that, and if it's institutionalized in government, then you have a problem. And I think that's the journalists have to point that out. And government will not like it when you do. The second is empowerment. So this shows you why it's important for this kind of engagement with the citizens and why journalists can help empower citizens and help build institutions bottom up. On August 26th this year, there was a Facebook post that asked Filipinos to go out on the streets against this anti-corruption scandal. In 7 days, 100,000 people gathered in a national park. It was called #MillionPeopleMarch. It's the first instance where social media reached out from the virtual world and transformed the real world. What's happened since August 26th? That pork barrel fund, it's called the Priority Development Assistance Fund, which has been part of Philippine governance since 1922, has now been declared unconstitutional. Change does happen. If you bring the people with you, the government does respond if you're a democracy. But silence will kill any initiative like that. In the end, transparency can lead to a period of a little more chaotic time. I like Joseph Schumpeter called it the creative destruction, right? Which is basically what the Philippines is going through right now after this institutionalized corruption has been exposed. But I hope in the long run, our society and our democracy comes out of it stronger.